Hello. Hello, good evening. Welcome to live stream. Nice to see you. Nice. I hope my audio is working well. Let me just check. Yes. My audio is working. Welcome. So, welcome. If this is your first time to live stream, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how it works. So, I do these talks every Sunday at 6 p.m. French time. For the time being, the Wednesday talks are suspended. I do them live on YouTube, so you can go to my YouTube channel and find it there at 6 p.m. I normally, for the first 10 minutes, just put on a waiting loop for people to join. So I normally start about 10 past 6. So the actual talking time is 10 past 6. And then I do a tiny bit of an introduction, and then I do a meditation for 20 minutes. And then about 6:30, 20 to 7, I do an introduction. About 7 o'clock, I do questions and answers. You can ask questions through Skype. My Skype address is Lisa Cairns 12. You can find it in the box below. And you can either write a question or you can call in. But if you want to call in, please put call me with nothing else afterwards. So I can see the call me, and I'll take the call me's above the other questions. Make sure that you have a headset and a microphone and good internet connection. And if you're not used to using Skype, you could maybe practice that by there's a call test call, and that is, let me see, you go up to Skype and you click on the Skype link up in your top bar if you've got a Mac. I don't know about Windows. And then you go down to audio and video settings, and if you scroll down in that, then it will say make a free test call, so you can always try that out. Yes. When I do these talks, I do a mixture of non-duality and helping the personal self. I see them as two different subjects, but I've come to learn over years of teaching now. I've been teaching 10 years. 10 years this coming December, I think. I've come to learn over the years that if you don't dress the personal self to an extent, the person is always a seeker. So what it will do then is it will try to fix itself through non-duality, through the teachings of non-duality. And some of the teachings of non-duality can be really relaxing for the person and help with the person psychologically, but some of it can be a bit like driving a truck when you've never learnt to drive. Bit of a train wreck, that's the right saying for it. And so I try to get people to balance that. And I also have the feeling, although I don't know if this is true, that the more balanced the sense of self is, the more likelihood there is in hearing non-duality. But that's not always the case, and I can find so many exceptions to that, so I don't really know. I don't know if anyone really knows. I am not enlightened, so if you're here like, oh, I'm going to listen to an enlightened master, I'm not enlightened, and I'm not enlightened. I'm neither nor. I had this profound awakening when I was 30, and I had done 10 years of spiritual seeking before that, and before that I'd had awakenings, but I hadn't been introduced to spirituality. And that's still integrating into the person. My personal self is really not perfect, but I feel like I have a deep connection to that which is beyond the self, and when I talk about it, there's something really genuine there, and I feel like it's really beautiful sharing that. But it's not the only way. There's so many different ways people talk about non-duality. I don't see non-duality as a mental thing. It's an energetical thing, but it's understanding that mentally has an importance, and there'll be teachers you resonate with more and teachers you feel better with. And I don't see it's one versus the other, even though they can be so radically different. You can have teachers that say there is nothing to be done, there is no to do. Some people that say there's loads to be done, and lots of cities that have to appear, and lots of practices that have to be acted out, all types of things. And I just don't see any really in contradiction to this. I love non-duality. I think it's like the most beautiful subject I've ever heard. It's a passion of mine to share that in speaking about non-duality in my writing. I write fiction, or I write plays and stories, and speaking about it. Okay, let's begin with the meditation. So I'm just watching Khaleesi. She's trying to open the door with her nose, but because she only has a walnut nut brain, she can't really work it out, and it keeps hitting her body and she's getting stuck. One moment. There we go. And in a few moments, if you're a dog owner, she'll want back in. She can push that way. That way she can work out. So we're going to start with a meditation. And I have to give some disclaimers before you meditate. Firstly, if you believe that you are going to meditate to become enlightened, who would that person be that's going to become enlightened? Who would this person be? So you're imagining that I'm going to do this with Lisa and I'm going to become an enlightened person, but who would become enlightened? Who is this you? We collect all these things together and we put them in a ball and we say, this is who I am. And then we get into the subject and we comprehend that this subject is about dismantling ourselves, dismantling our ego and our wants and our desires and our belief systems. But then we still hold on to this belief system of I, and I'm going to become enlightened. So meditation isn't about that. Meditation is about settling the body-mind mechanism down. And then when that happens, then maybe something else can happen. But the goal isn't to become something. And meditation isn't also about you having a particular meditation. Just turning up and doing it is enough. Just committing to doing it is enough. And just sitting there is enough. You know, so it's not about having like all these blissful states and like rainbows coming out of all your orifices. It's really not about glowing white light or seeing the Buddha 2,000 years ago in your imagination or hearing the guru's words. It's just turning up and seeing what's happening and just allowing that to happen. There's different meditations that I suggest. The next disclaimer is that you believe that what I'm saying is I'm saying these words to meditate and I'm giving description of them, and you believe that that's a prescription, that I'm saying there is an individual inside your brain who is going to do these actions and become something. Whereas again, that's another illusion, another belief system that you've got taught and that you've bought into. It's a cult of our society, the idea that you're the doer. The idea that you're not the doer is also an idea and is equally untrue. They're both concepts. Really, the more simplistic language is it's a happening. There is an arising of me talking about meditation, and in your body there is a rising of energy that either does it or doesn't do it. Okay. So next part is, what meditations do I recommend? So I just recommend what I know, and I'm sure there's loads of amazing meditations out there that you can find. But the ones that I know from when I was a Buddhist was number one, mindfulness of breathing. And this is counting your breath. It's a really simple one. And it is every time you breathe in, you ascend, you count upwards to number 10. And then once you get to number 10, you go back to 0 again. So all it is every time you breathe in, you count 1, next breath in 2, next breath in 3. And when you get to number 10, you start again. So basically what it's doing is it's requiring concentration. So you're concentrating and focusing the thinking mind. And when I first started it, I could go up to like hundreds. I'd be like 556. Oh, drat. I forgot to go back to 0. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just presenting yourself and doing it, and keep repeating it, and then eventually it will focus your mind more. The next one is putting your attention into I am, or consciousness. So every time your mind drifts off into thought, you bring it back to this present moment. So you bring it back to what's happening. And then the third one is just sitting. They used to call this at the Buddhist Center, just sitting. You have your little bell, ding, 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 just sitting. And it literally means what it says as the title, just sitting. You just sit there and you let your mind do anything that it wants. So if it wants to think about pink pajamas or reindeers or snow, then it can think about all these things. It doesn't matter. Easy, you can push open the door. Come on, come. Do it with your nose. Good girl. Who's a good girl? Who's a good girl? You're a good girl. So that is that. So I'm going to ring a bell, and then we shall sit for a period of time. I just kind of do it by flow when I feel like, but it's generally like 20 minutes. Okay, and we begin. So, let's see what the title is. I've forgotten it already. Do I need to let go of everything in order to be free? Well, what seems to be the tipping point, so what seems to tip people into awakening is what you'd call surrender, or the lack of attachment to anything. And then after, once the awakenings happen, like this energetic shifts happen, like you could see it like as breaking a hole in the fabrics of your reality, then there has to be reattachment in order to function as a human. But in order to like fall off the cliff edge, it seems there has to be complete detachment to everything. It's an absolute surrender. And what do I mean by attachment and detachment? Because that can be quite a full-on thing to say. And if you're new to this subject, like you most probably wouldn't be listening to me, but what does that mean? So we have these, no, maybe that's not the best place to start. Where is the best place to start? So all of us, you could say, have something called a character, or an ego, society might call it. And what I mean by that is a sense of self. And everybody's sense of self is different. So some people's sense of self is to be really extrovert, to really enjoy sports, to love being with people, to want to have kids, want to get married, want to settle down, want to live abroad. And then another character or another sense of self might be someone that's really introverted, like things quiet, like order, routine, the same job, small circle of friends. So we all have these sense of selves or personalities or characters. Everybody has it. And we also have in us like a voice inside our head that's talking to us about reality. And we all kind of like don't talk about that too much. That's a little bit weird, that we will have a voice inside our head that's like, and this voice has profound effects on our body. So if the voice is saying, oh God, there's going to be an airstrike and bombs are going to come down on the city and we're all going to die, then the body will be in like nervous anxiety, angst, paranoia, freezing, shock. And if the voice is saying how much they love themselves and how fantastic they are, then maybe there's joy and ecstasy. And it's always yakkering away inside our head, this voice. And it comes with this feeling of being inside the body. It comes with feeling like it's being alive, and it also comes with self-awareness, and it feels like it has the ability to move the self-awareness. So it has the ability, this little voice, to put the self-awareness on the table, on the tip of your nose, to cross your eyes like this, to stick up your hand. And I don't know, maybe we call it the ego just for simplicity. And I'm not saying that's good or bad, the ego. Most of society is like the ego, that's the ego. They're so egotistical. It's neutral. I'm just saying this is something that happens as fact. So we all have this voice inside our head, and the voice affects our emotions, and our emotions affect the voice. There's like a chicken and an egg scenario going on. So if you're feeling very emotional, maybe you've got PMT or like your dad's just died or your mum's just died or something, and there's more emotions, then it will affect the narrative of the voice. And what happens to most people before they get into spirituality is that voice and the body and the consciousness and the sense of being and your feelings and emotions all create this person called you. And this person called you is separate from the world that it sees. So it's separate from the ground, it's separate from the smells, it's separate from the sights, it's separate from the other people, it's separate from the room. And this separate self is walking through an external world. It's like walking through all these different directions of this universe, and it is separate from others. And a lot of the time when you're totally identified with the body-mind mechanism, with the feelings, that's what I'd call identification. When you're totally identified with it, then everything the voice says is true. And you can't notice the difference between what the voice is saying and what's happening in the world. And that's really hard to remember if you've been into spirituality for a long time. I can't really remember that well. But basically, so if we're in this situation and fear arises and fearful thoughts arise, then maybe that is just seen as really, really, really real. And there's no question that it's not. So for example, say if you're getting stoned and you're smoking weed, there always seems to be this moment in smoking weed where there's the choice, whereas there's a big rush of energy, and there's a choice seemingly to believe you're dying or to go into like an ecstasy or joy. And it's kind of like a collapsing of the self, I suppose, that happens. That doesn't always happen. And the body is changing, so the heart rate might elevate slightly, you might get a little bit like sweaty. That happens on lots of drugs, I presume. It's called like coming up, I suppose. I don't really know all the terminology for it. And yeah, there's this moment. Now, if you're totally identified with the body-mind, you will just think that anything that your mind thinks is true, and it will just go down those avenues. So if you get paranoid, you'll suddenly start thinking that you're having a heart attack, or that there's something wrong with you, or something bad is going to happen, and then you'll get totally invested in that, and it's like that becomes reality, and that becomes real, really real. And then as you begin to wake up, what we call wake up in non-duality, that your thoughts about the experience detach from the experience itself. And there is some part of the thinking mind or the body mind that knows these things aren't true. It still might have a panic attack, but it knows it's not true. And then as it goes further and further down the path, it maybe can redirect it. So it can begin to have control over its thoughts, even though it really can't in the ultimate scheme of things, but it seemingly can redirect things. It can see that it's not true, and it can change its mind quite rapidly. And these are all like different stages of being attached and unattached to the person. So in the beginning, there is total attachment to the person, total identification with the person, and everything is real in the personal world. So let me check that everything is working. And everything is real in the personal world. And then as the process of non-duality begins to take hold, the apparent process of non-duality or waking up, is there becomes more and more detachment from things. So before, if you were very driven by your emotions rather than thinking, there is a detachment from it. If you are very driven by thinking, there is a detachment from thinking. There's a part of you that begins to know that what you think isn't true. There's a part of you that begins to know what you feel isn't true. So if you're feeling like sadness, and sadness comes in and everything's coloured, like rather than it being like, that is making me sad, the other person is making me sad, the world is making me sad, I am making me sad, there's some part that's detached from that and knows that's not true anymore. And this really is, in my experience, what the process was, is it's slow detachment from everything you believe to be real. For me, my mind was strong, but it was more the feelings that would come up and seem really real, as if they're real. And it doesn't mean that your feelings and your thoughts don't have like a greater perspective on what's happening. So if you meet someone and you have a feeling like they have dark energy, that could be closer to the truth, but that's a different point. That's a different thing. Like in the detachment stage, you're beginning to see that everything you think and feel isn't true. And then once you've done that, then you can see that there's stuff that's closer to truth and not closer to truth, but you're not identified with it anymore. So this is like this identified energy where it really begins to get pulled into it. And when it's believed to be true, when you're believing yourself to be this body and your thought, the narrator in your mind, the stories that are being told are true, it creates seeking, because as soon as identification and attachment happens, there's always discomfort in the body-mind mechanism. And while there's discomfort, there's always seeking that will appear, which encourages this separation, which encourages the narrator, which encourages the emotions. And this seeking is always saying, there's something in the future which will fix me. So if you're having like a huge feeling of sadness and then you're projecting it's because your partner doesn't love you enough, and that if you'd picked a different partner then you'd be loved more and you'd be happier, like so you're off on this bandwagon of this story that you believe, then there is this seeking element in it that believes that it's true. It might be about voiding the past, like you made a mistake and you're an idiot and you should avoid the past. And it might also be like projecting into the future of what it needs or what it wants. But it's like this energy of suffering that comes with it. And this is identification, totally being lost in the person and being lost in these feelings. Often a lot of our feelings and thoughts aren't very conscious to us. So it's also the identification and the attachment to the person is kind of hidden. So we're not really conscious of it. So on the surface level, we're saying the partner doesn't love us enough, he doesn't do the cooking, he doesn't clean up, he doesn't walk the dog, he doesn't do all these things. And then there's this huge sadness and this huge seeking to avoid and fight and try and get his attention and play all these games. And underneath there might be a, what's that word called again? Schema of I'm not good enough to be loved. And that might be very unconscious in the psyche, but that's part of the person as well. It's just not known. So they don't feel good enough to be loved. And so they're always looking out and seeing lack of love. And then that gets focused and narrowed in on the person. And it's like your consciousness and your I am and the person are like so close together. Like this is the consciousness and the I am of who you truly are. And the person is so close together. And it has areas and where it's more attached to. So say if you're very creative and good at your job and you had success in your job, then the person might become very attached to that. They might have an underlying schema that they need to do this in order to fit in. They need to produce and be creative in order to fit in or something. That might be their underlying schema. What they're conscious on the level, conscious on what they can see on the conscious level is this strong urge to work at all costs. So this very like focused urge to work and an over fixation on the success of it, on production, on what other people think. This is just for example. And that becomes part of you, that becomes part of your ego, and it becomes part of your seeking structure. But it's often not conscious. So underneath it might be a deep feeling of not fitting in, an urge to fit in. That's the unconscious part. So that's the lie. And then on the surface, it manifests as working really hard and trying to present these great results, be better than the neighbor, etc., to win. And it feels like a compulsion. It can feel good, but it has a lot of seeking energy, so a lot of discomfort in it. So and every body-mind mechanism will have different areas and where it's attached and other areas where it's not so attached. So no one body-mind mechanism is the same. Normally it would be generational, and it's also genetic. It will be passed on to you, these karmas and these schemas that are playing in your body. And also it's maybe like what you'd call past lives, as in like a random collection of body-mind mechanism dynamics. It's a collective consciousness that like all gets mushed together, and you end up with bits of this personality and that personality. And that is identification. What happens in waking up is the consciousness and the I am disidentify with the body. Ultimately, when it's really seen, you see that it was never actually identified with the body, it just seemingly was. But it disidentifies with the body, so there is a breaking, and it seems that what happens in that breaking is there, like in loads of reports, there's a surrender, or there's a detachment from the person. And what happens in the person, it looks like, is a surrendering in some way, giving up. It sounds so terrible, like a giving up on everything. So the person really begins to see that nothing in life will ever make it happy. Nothing in life will be its freedom. So, and there's a snap. You could say it's grace, because the person can't force this to happen. Non-duality and the teachings of it can take the body-mind to a certain place where the body-mind can become very relaxed, and the ego, the personality structure, can become very thin. But then there's something that happens where there is a surrender. There is a falling off the cliff edge, not literally, and a letting go of everything. And then the consciousness and the I am break away from the body, and it is recognized who you truly are, that who you are is empty and full at the same time. It is no thing and it's everything, that consciousness is nowhere and all places. You could also say that consciousness is not non-existent. There's simply energy or everything experiencing itself. So it detaches, and there's this massive like oneness experience, but you can't function from my experience, from that pure consciousness perspective. There has to be some identification with the body. And there's that famous like Zen proverb, excuse me, proverb, which is, I'm never very good at quoting things. I have a terrible memory. The proverb is, in the beginning, the mountains are only real. Then they are seen, so then there's the awakening, and they are seen as not real. And then they are seen as real and unreal. I didn't tell it very eloquently. I'm sure it's a poem and a lot more elegant than that. So it's like there's this total disidentification, but then there has to be some identification with the body again in order to function. There's another one about chopping wood. I've forgotten that. Basically, there is the detachment, there's absolute knowing of who you are. And once that's known, it's like there is just an energetic resonance with it in that system like the whole world has woken up and there's a freedom there and it's recognized. But then there has to be an attachment of going back to the body. Otherwise, I suspect the body just dies. Because it wouldn't do anything. I don't think. It would just sit there blessed out and rot away. Like, that's what happened to Ramana Maharshi. Like, people had to help him. Like, his nails would be all twisted around and rats would be nibbling at him. So then there's to be some form of coming back to the body-mind mechanism. And then, say, maybe before the person was really attached to work, but then afterwards, when it comes back, there is some form of attachment to work, but it's not in the same way. It's more it's in flow of life, and it's not about getting happiness in the future, because there is a knowing of the happiness that is, but there is some urge, there is some compulsion to do it. And maybe it even has at the bottom of it, when it's re-identified, this little seed of I fit in if I give work, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's part of being human. Like Khaleesi, who I feel is unidentified. I mean, there's some form of identification with the body, but like she's enlightened, like free. Like she also does no clue who she is. She wants to fit in, and she's got many karmas and schemas going on, just not thought based. Yes. So what was the original question? Just to bring it back to something. Do you need to let go of everything in order to be free? So there seems to be, that seems to be what happens in awakening. There is a surrender and a letting go of everything. You could call it a death. Happens. And it's not really your activity, so you don't need to worry about it, because the you would never want to let go of things in a way. It sort of happens by itself. A bit like that, you know, the Pac-Man in that game, and then when it ends, like so the Pac-Man's going along eating its ball, and then when it ends, its mouth opens wide and then goes backwards and kind of disappears into nothing, like meow. I think that's how it ends. So I wouldn't worry, like, it's not that you've got to like now let go of everything and you've got to do it. It's something that's kind of happening, and it will take you by surprise. So, yeah. And then at the same time, having said all this, like when there is that detachment, this waking up, this energetic shift, there's also seeing that all of this is nonsense. All these words, all these descriptions, all these stories are also nonsense. There's like no attachment left to these things, even though they're spoken about and we talk about it and we have fun and we explore these things. At the same time, it's deeply, deeply known that it's all nonsense. Like all there is right now, which is empty, which is finite and infinite. And it's experiencing itself as everything. And all these stories that you tell yourself don't actually exist here. They're just stories. They're not truth. Some have more relevance to truth. Like I'm sitting and speaking to a computer. That's how we would call it in language. But in actuality, right here, there is no computer. There is no speaking. There is no me. There is no you. There is nothing happening and seemingly everything happening. And this is absolute freedom. Like psychology and healing your body-mind mechanism is great, and I recommend doing all those things, but that won't ever lead you to the freedom of this moment. That's endless. This moment is so free and so pure and so open and so loving. Okay, I see I've been talking for quite a while. I will see if there's questions. So if you're joining now, you can ask questions through Skype, which is Lisa Cairns 12. You can find it in the box below. Oh, here's someone put the quote. That's great. Nick. Thanks, Nick. Before one studies Zen, mountains are mountains and water are water. After a first glimpse into the truth of Zen, mountains are no longer mountains and waters are no longer water. After enlightenment, mountains are once again mountains and water once again water. Water. Dogshen. Nice. But it's not quite the same as what I said, but about the real and the not real. I like the wolf. Hi Tanya. Hi Lisa Bold. Hi Tanya. Kat and I are watching. Send you lots of love. Oh, nice. Hey Kat. Hi Bia. Hi Isabel. Hi Enzo. I have to send you a message, otherwise your question disappears. Question: after all this, what moves you to do what you do? Why do you speak on this? What's the point? You'll probably say there's no point. So then what moves you? Why move at all? It is a question I'm asking myself, really. Hi Enzo. Yeah. So in a way, there is like a collapsing back into just everything, and it's like everything is moving you. So you're waiting for the impulses for everything to move you. And it kind of feels, from my perspective, that it's happening. And then there feels like there is this personality structure which is coming and going, and it enjoys some things more than others. But to be honest, a lot of my life is routine. And I really enjoy doing that routine, and I just wake up and do the same thing again and again and again. So I don't have to make that many choices. So it's just that's what we do today. We walk the dog. Khaleesi, I got Khaleesi about 8 years ago, and she's really great because she, as soon as we wake up in the morning, she's like, "Come on, woman, walk me, woman, walk me, woman, walk me." So that's good. And in the afternoon, she's like, woman, walk me. So that's one of my routines, but I have other routines. And then there's things that I enjoy more than other things. So, but also you can feel these natural impulses, like as you become more simple, there is this spaciousness. This is why there has to be some identification with the body, because if you're just in the spaciousness, in the absolute, then there is no momentum to move. But if you come into the body and feel into the body, you can feel momentums, but they're just really reduced. Before, when there's identification, it has seeking on top of it. So it's like everything becomes very important. I must be successful. I must be rich. People must see me as this. I need to do that. I need to get this. You know, it has. Okay. It has a lot of volition. Next bit of the question. What I really mean to say is, having seen beyond illusion seems not enough somehow, since it does not answer the question of living. It seems one still needs to accept illusion or a story in order to function in this world. Otherwise, why would anyone speak on this subject? So what I'm asking is, where do you come from? I think I answered that already. And I don't agree with your initial summing up of the way it is. So having seen beyond illusion seems not enough somehow, since it does not answer the question of living. It does. When you really have that expansion and know who you are, it does answer the question to living. It's not even that it answers it, that all questions disappear in the mind. It's seen as absolutely irrelevant. And you know who you are, and there is absolutely no issue with that, and there's no issue with the play of life happening. And in the ultimate sense of things, When you look at the person is a puppet happening with the appearance of free will. So in Lisa, there's an appearance of free will. So in order to act, she focuses on the delicacies of the body. The mind is listened to an extent, but it's generally about the body and what the body feels inclined to do. And there is a trust in that, and there is a hard line with that, because it means taking a lot of risks, like trying to follow the body. Even though I've got my routine set up, like there's been lots of risk taking, you know. Like, well, for example, in my day-to-day living, I choose to not go after money, which is risking. I mean, that's more when I was younger. I chose not to go after money, but I don't choose to go after it now, but I'm very comfortable now. But when I was younger, like there was that radical choice to go after feelings and listen to the body over what the mind said. And the mind was all like, get a career, work 20 hours a day, if that's possible, 17 hours a day, build a house, have a family, do all these things. So yeah, hope that answers your question, Enzo. Thank you so much for your question. Skype has this funny thing, if you don't put a message to people, then the questions disappear. Hi Lisa, it's Jamel again, the one you blocked and I stayed around. Ego death or transference is a key psychological term. Fleshly feeling mechanism. I don't know why I blocked you, Jamel, I can't remember. Hey Dennis, would you talk about this topic? You are already free. Here's what you do now. Your friend in Kentucky. That's it, full stop. Here's what you do now. There's no follow on, you put ... Here is what you do now, what's happening. So it's what's happening. The mind is always like that. Ramesh Balsakar, one of my teachers, he used to always tell this story about when he was looking after his great-granddaughter. He was from Mumbai in India, and his whole family lived in an apartment block, like in the whole apartment block, not just in one of the apartments in the apartment block. And some days his great-granddaughter would come, and him and his wife would look after the great-granddaughter. And he said one time she came up and she had pencils and piece of paper, and so she drew him a picture. She was only like 2.5, 3 years old, and then she gave him the picture, and he was like, that is very good, well done, I really like that picture. And then she's like, and what now? What do I do now? It's like the human's conundrum. What do I do now? Tell me what to do. Another reflection on that is my friend, when he was dying, he was very productive, and he came to like this really beautiful realization that we're not called human doers, we're called human beings. I just thought that was so beautiful. We're not human doers, we're human beings. Like, it's in our title, like we even named ourselves that, human being. We are being. So fundamentally, it's like, if you want freedom, it's really recognizing that beingness of what you are, but it's not a personal recognition. It's seeing that that's what is. That's the nature of life, and you are life, which is so beautiful. You are that life. So it's recognizing that, and then what to do is, what begins to happen when you're waking up is you stop focusing so much on what the mind says, and the attention like includes everything. So it includes what's outside, but it's also including the body. When you're very identified, normally there is a lot of tension around the head, and there's just listening to the voice in the head, which it doesn't tell the truth. It's trying to protect you, but it's not telling the truth a lot of the time. And my teacher, Roger, he always used to say the body never lies. And then, so when you're waking up, the body becomes more into focus. And as things get more and more simple and you have less seeking and suffering happening, you'll begin to notice that there's a flow in the body, that there's a more organic flow in the body. And I also like routine. I think that humans, like Khaleesi likes routine as well. Like humans, most probably we evolved with routine. Like you get up at this time, you do these types of things. So it's like I don't have to spend the whole day like, what am I going to do now? But I always break the routine if my body doesn't feel to do it. Like if I feel like sleeping, I sleep. Unless it's really required by other people or something very important. Generally, that's it. I hope that answers that question. If you would like to call in, I'll take preference to calls. Then just put "call me," please, in Skype, and then I can see it. Call me. And also, if you watch regularly, if I ever have any technical problems, please tell me, because I can't tell. Oh, there's somebody calling. Okay. I'll just call you back in 1 second while I set up Chris. Yeah, so please tell me if there's any technical problems, because then I can fix it. I can't tell that that's happening. So Chris. So just if you put just "call me," and then I will call you. I gotta phone Chris now. I just pop in my plugs. Skype just crashed. Hello. Hey, Chris. Hey. Nice to see you.
I just put my headphones on and then we can talk, okay?
Okay. Oops. Hey, Chris.
Okay.
Hey.
Lisa.
Could I just get you to turn your video off so all my internet speed's going to my stream?
Should I call you about normal phone?
No, it's good to do like this, but if you can just turn your video off, I can see you.
I should turn off my video?
Yes, please. Danke. Thank you.
Okay. I can see you about the live stream.
Yeah, it's not in time with the live stream. Yeah, you have to do it the old-fashioned way, just through sound. It's maybe like 5 seconds or 10 seconds in front.
Okay, then I just can hear you.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I have a few things. It's not about spirituality. It's about something else, and it's about a few habits.
Yeah.
And other things I have.
Yeah, sure.
The thing is, what should I start?
Whichever one you like.
I would like to start with my habits and with my friend.
Okay.
So I have a good friend.
Mm-hmm.
We talk every day.
Yeah.
And I know him since I think 70 years. But the last days he isn't talking to me for some reason.
Yeah.
And normally a few months ago, everything was fine. I felt good. And I also found a good psychologist. And she didn't want to work with me because I took a drug. And she only knew from that because of normally I had 3 sessions with her, and she made a session with her husband, and her husband wasn't a real psychologist. He was a healing. He was a healer, alternative practitioner, and he asked me too much questions, and I felt very bad after it. And then we had 3 weeks pause, and then she said, when I'm clean, we can have in April another session. Then I had another session with a woman in another city. It was I went to the train, I went to that woman, and I had already a meeting in April with that woman. And then we had I filled 3 pieces of paper, and then she said, "Here's no place." So I am now here alone with me, and I had last year an experience with a spiritual teacher. That was my main problem. And before it, I did a method in psychology. It called a radical allowance. It's working with parts of the inner child, and it helped me a lot. But I went to a spiritual teacher, and it changed my whole system. And since then, everything changed. My stepmom threw me out of home, and now I live with my grandma. And yeah, now I don't feel myself. I don't feel whole, and I don't feel my emotions well.
And it was all from going to the spiritual teacher. It was all from this interaction with a spiritual teacher, or it was combination?
It was I 1 year ago I wanted to travel to him, but I found I traveled to Egypt, and then the next year I called another spiritual teacher, and he said, "Why don't you book a holiday?" And then I saw he was on the beach. He had a beach and something, and then I had a feeling I don't felt well, and then I had the feeling maybe I shouldn't go there, or I should go there. And then he wrote a message to me. He found it nice that I come to him, and then I booked everything, and I told even the person, because of I talked with the person who is organizing everything, and I told her I'm not feeling well. Should I come? And she said, "Yeah, come," and everything. And then I traveled to Munich, and even in Munich, I felt it was too much for me. And then we traveled. I felt bad, and then I was in a hotel, and I felt it was too much. Then I went to the bus station, and I had that imagination from him that it was too big, and something in my system changed. And I traveled there, and I felt it was too near. I was too near to him, or something. And yeah, it's just something changed, and I found a woman. She could help me, but we had 1 session, and something solved in me. But she didn't want to work with me. She said, "I don't want to work with you again. I'm sorry." And then I'm looking for somebody to help me out of this.
Yeah, I think that's really like a big thing to do on a live stream. Like I don't I'm sorry, I'm not meaning to laugh. I'm just laughing at what it's like to be human. Like sometimes our problems are quite complex, and then I think that to do that, to go into that, because I think I'd need to know a lot more about the situation, about the feelings, about what's happening inside of you. Like we are really complex beings. It's not just
You
one
are
thing.
you are a bit more than a human. I think you have a whole feeling, a more presence feeling, or you're more present, maybe.
I don't know, but that's beside that's beside the point. Like I think that if we were going to talk about that, we'd have to go a lot more into what's happening in you. And so I would be reluctant to go there on live stream. Like, I would be happy to go into the investigation if you wanted to, as to who you think this person is now that you're telling the story about. But if you wanted to work on the story and work on the psychology and work on what happened, then I think that we'd need to speak like just one-to-one outside a live stream, because I think it's too big to speak about. Like, there's too much going on in that story. So, but I would happily point it out, like you're like who is it that thinks that they're existing in that story?
Yeah, I think that's a bit difficult for me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's okay. We don't have to do that either. But I think with that particular, it just feels too vast for me. Like, it's like there's nothing to particularly narrow it down to, like a feeling or a feeling in your chest. I can speak more abstractly, and I can speak about like the body-mind mechanism. So I could do that, and it might not be that helpful for you, but at least it's something, like it's something that we can go into. Like, maybe what you need more is to really go into the feelings, to go into your body, and to really need someone to guide you. But I can speak more on the surface level rather than really going deep with you individually now. And so what I would do if we were in a one-to-one session is I would get you to explore your chakras and how you feel in this moment. Like, so what's going on in your chakras and how everything relates to that. So we have with this complex being. So like I was speaking about earlier, we have this ego that we're attached to, and then we also have inside the ego, we have this feeling body, and we have all these chakras. In the body, we have 7 main chakras, but then we've got all little tiny chakras all over the body, and then there's chakras outside of the body. But we've got 7 main chakras in the body. And what happens when you identify and your mind is telling you a story about you, we have all these deep schemas that we believe, like, I'm not good enough. Nobody loves me, nobody sees me, I can't do things, like life is too difficult. We can also believe the positive, but I find most people believe the negative about themselves.
Yeah,
like, I'm stuck, I'm not good enough.
I think my main problem is that negative thinking. I don't know why I came into it, but I only feel that negative feelings, and I don't know why. It's only a negative spiral.
The reason it is because there's identification with the body mind, and then your chakras are in the negative, because identification is a negative thing inherently. As soon as you identify, you feel like you've lost love, you feel like you've lost part of yourself, and then your chakras tend to vibrate in the negative and pick up negative stories about themselves from the environment or genetically from what's passed on from your parents. So you've got like the depressive stories, like, I hate life, I hate other people, I'm frustrated, things aren't good enough, nothing's good enough for me, I can't provide for myself, I'm hopeless, I'm useless, like all these negative stories. And when we're really identified, all our chakras are vibrating in the negative stories, and then our mind it's not saying those stories out loud, but what it's doing is it's either finding fault with the world. So it's their fault, they're to blame. It's because I haven't got a house. It's because other people are rude. It's because of coronavirus. It's because of my dog. It's because of my kid. It's because of my mom. It's because of what happened to me in the past. And then the other thing is inside, it's because of me. I'm guilty. I did something bad. I'm a bad person. Shame. So we have these polarities, and they all come from the idea that you are a separate person. You're separate from life. Well, they don't all come from that, but a lot of what they come from, like, I'm separate from life.
A few months ago, I felt really connected to everything, to my life, to outside, to inside, to people. And then something happened about months, and then I came to that negativity, and I don't feel connected to the outside.
So what I would say, when you felt more connected, there was an expansion, and then what happened a few months ago in a way is irrelevant. Something contracted in you, and now what you've got to deal with is what you're feeling now. So you're feeling a lot of contraction, and then there has to be a presence to that contraction, and it's through presence that the chakras begin to change. As the chakras become more balanced, the seeking becomes reduced, and then there is more of an expansion, and then there is a point where you have that awakening, but that's like further down the road. But you feel more expanded when the chakras aren't in the negative, so when you feel more good and healthy and balanced about yourself. So something happened a few months ago, and it's irrelevant. There was a contraction in you that happened, and so now it's bringing presence to what's actually happening in your body and in your system, and what narratives you're telling yourself. In a way, it's a gift when they're in the narrative of the negative, because then you see what you're identified with, what lies you're telling yourself. Yeah.
I can't say what story I'm telling myself. I just feel it. I just feel a bit negativity at the moment, and the only thing I feel better is with my friend. And my friend had no time, and
so let's look at that. Like, that's nice that you feel better with your friend, but just as something to jump off of, and because we can't go really deep into what's happening to you at the moment because it's just too complex to do in an online session. So let's just have, like, I'll just throw some ideas out there. So maybe what your body is saying on the unconscious level, which would be in the heart area, is loneliness, is feeling isolated and feeling loneliness. I think a lot of people feel like that with Corona at the moment. So there's feeling of loneliness, and you might not be conscious of that story. What you might be conscious of is seeking to get your friend's attention, seeking to get the therapist's attention, seeking to have contact with people, because underneath in your heart you feel not connected and you feel alone and you feel maybe abandoned as well. And the way that you become conscious of this is not so much through the mind, because the mind lies. The mind is telling you you need a friend, you need your friend to listen to you, you feel better with your friend. But what your body is telling you is a different story. And if you would pay attention maybe to your heart, this is just a suggestion, you might begin to feel in your heart area what's being said is, I'm lonely. And this isn't true. There is no loneliness, because who you truly are is everything. It's a karma and it's an energy that's rising in your chakra. And while it's believed, then you're seeking for it. So while you believe it and you're not conscious of that feeling in your heart, then you're seeking to get love from people. And then you're looking at everyone that rejects you. You're looking at society that rejects you. And you're feeling not good enough. And you're feeling this pain and this contraction. What happens in awakening is the coming back to the body and a recognizing of these deep lies that we tell ourselves. And through bringing consciousness to them, it breaks them. Because in future, when you're reaching out to get attention from people, you, instead of reaching out, maybe you still do reach out to get attention from people, that's not necessarily bad, but while you're doing it, you're also conscious of the ache in the heart and the feeling that's saying, I'm not good enough to be loved, or I'm going to be abandoned. And then you'll begin to break that deep-rooted idea that getting love is in the flow of life, getting love is in others, and you'll begin to see that there is a love that's in you. There is a beingness and a presence that's in you right here, right now, and it's always there. What hides it is these identifications with these schemas, these deep-rooted schemas that are in the body, and that's the lie.
Okay. And how can I change my behaviors? Because I think I had good behaviors a few months ago, and now I think my behaviors changed. And,
so when you begin to contract, you feel bad,
And I had a psychologist, and I felt more, maybe not more expensive, but I had more room inside. And I think I resonate with some people when I do something. Something happens suddenly. Some people text me unexpectedly, and
then you maybe feel more loved, but it is like an instantaneous thing that's happening. In that moment, you feel more loved, and then there's a shift in your system. You feel more a part of the group, and there's a shift in your system. It could be energetical as well, we don't know, but I'm just pointing out from what I know, and from what I know is that most of the time we all have these deep-rooted schemas inside our chakras, and they've come from your past, the seeming past, and we retell these stories to ourselves, and then it creates this seeking action. So I feel unloved is a deep-rooted schema. It's a pain in the heart, and then there is a seeking for love in the external. And waking up is really surrendering and detaching from the idea that anything in the flow, anything that you tell yourself, anything that you feel is going to complete you is not going to complete you. The completion comes from the consciousness and the empty looking and that beingness. It's really that, and really seeing it beyond anything. Like, even if there is energetic shifts with certain people, seeing that it's not them, that it's not the teacher, that there is something else happening. There might seemingly be some connections, but in the end, it's everybody's birthright, this beingness. If what's lying, what's hiding it, is because the chakras go tight, the energy feels very contracted in the body, and then there is the narrator saying, I'm incomplete, I've got to get this, I've got to do that, there's something wrong. And then it really feels real. And the answer always is consciousness.
I think I have also feelings that are stuck in my body, and I can solve them by myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when your body is in contraction, you are going to do more negative things and more self-destructive things. Like, so your behaviors will change. When your body feels more expansive, then you'll be more than likely more loving and more open to things. But nice. Maybe that's enough for tonight. But yeah, thank you for calling and exposing those things and sparking off conversation. I'm sorry we couldn't go really deeply into your personal story, but it's not so easy on a live stream to do that.
Yeah, I think that also. Maybe I book a session with you.
Yeah, maybe. Nice.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for calling. Have
Thanks,
a nice
Chris.
evening.
Yeah. Thank you, and you. Bye.
To the people also. Bye.
Bye. Nice. Hi, Carmela. So if you'd like to call in, like Chris just did, then please put call me with nothing else underneath it so I can see that message, and then I can call you. Pardon me. When the personal story and identification fully collapses, is it possible for it to come back? After awakening, is it possible to go back to sleep and identify with the mind and thoughts again? When the separate self is fully seen as illusion, can we go back to sleep in the illusion again? I don't think so. But in the end, anything's possible. So who knows? Like, maybe if there's like a bang of the, I don't know. I get the sense no. Like, once that is realized, it's an energetic shift and it can't be unseen, but who knows? And in a way, that question is quite abstract, because all there is this, and who is the person that sees it anyway? It's like life waking up, it's not a personal thing. Thank you, Jasmine. And I can't know because I've only done 10 years of this. Hi, Dorothy. Thank you. Your teaching is so helpful. Doris. It's a pleasure, Doris. Thank you. Hi, Ken. Hi, Lisa. I've seen a few of your videos on YouTube and I just felt moved in this moment to ask a question. I feel awake, but I don't feel happy or at peace on a constant basis. I have occasional peaks, but I still flip-flop a lot. Yeah. That's okay. That's what happens. Normally there is a seeming process of a dismantling of self and then a keeling over the edge. You also might, so there might also be that there is a flip-flopping for a period and then something happens and then that shifts. It might also be that there's stuff in your pain body that wants to be seen and wants to present itself and wants to be looked at. Really, everything that happens is a gift. Everything. So we call it the flip good and the flop bad, but they're one and the same. All of it's a gift. Nice, thanks Ken. Hi Schumann. Hi Lisa. The quote, "Nothing ever happened," came up during the meditation. I feel that this cannot really be seen unless there is a great deal of humility. I'm aware that my sense of self seems to be blind to this. It's strange. Thank you very much for your talk, Schumann. Nothing ever happened. Yeah, maybe the personal self does need to have a certain amount of humility, because the opposite to that feels like you would not be humble. So there'll be a lot of claiming things and feeling a lot of like pride that I did it, that it's my job to do it, that I'm in control. So there would be this element of pride, which pride is okay, it's just a feeling, but it if it's taken seriously, then it tends to make a hard ego that wants to define itself a lot more strongly. It could be, or it could be not in the end though. In the end, all we know is what's happening, and everything else is theory. Like this right now is totally empty of anything. It's totally empty. There is nothing happening. There is this empty looking, and this alive presence, and then this person that's thinking and wanting to go somewhere and imagining things and believing that it's sitting there, but there's nobody sitting there. There's nobody looking, there's nobody speaking, there's nobody hearing. There is only what is happening. And it's so free, it doesn't care if this is seen or not seen. It's total love. Thanks, Schumann. Hey, Raphael. Hey, if you have no one to call, I'm open to speak. I have a bit of a dilemma with work and choosing by practical circumstances while feeling wise. Okay, thanks, Raphael. I'll just see what else is here. It doesn't sound like your question is very urgent. I'll just see what other people are saying. Noah. Hi, Lisa. I'm curious because it's spoken that it's about waking up to who you are. So does it feel like the me wakes up, or is it life, or are they the same thing? Thanks, Noah. It is life that wakes up. It's completely impersonal, but it does feel like the most intimate sense of being. So it's the most intimate sense of you, not the fake bits of you. So not the memory, not the image, not the body, not the feelings, not the thoughts, not the actions, the job, the external. So it's the most intimate sense of being. So, and that wakes up, but it's not a thing, but you know it. It's that which is looking now. It's that which is I am. I am. That was there. That was there when you were 2, 5, 10, 15, when you got heartbreak, when you took your first drink, when you smoked your first drugs, when you eat pizza, when you walk the dog, when you have children, when you become old. It's that same I am and same sense of being. I remember this time, I've told this so many times. I was with my friend and my mum, and my mum was turning 70, and she said, I don't feel 77. 77. I don't feel 70. She's now 77. I don't feel 70. And my friend said, of course you don't feel 70. Like you feel the same age as when you were 21, you feel the same age as when you were 30, as when you were 5. And she was like, yes, I do. And she's like, it's shocking seeing a 70-year-old woman in the mirror. And he pointed out to her, it was so beautiful, like that our sense of being is timeless and ageless. And we know it so well. It's not far away from you. It's the closest that is here. It's just not identified with form. Nice. Thanks, Noah. Jasmine, what does it mean when you say everything is both real and unreal? It seems like both of these concepts, real and unreal, are just thoughts arising from nowhere. They are. It really doesn't matter in the end. You could say that real and unreal are concepts arising from awareness, but then awareness is also another concept. So what's left? Just this, just what's happening. And all of its stories. This is why I've always bang on that there's nobody that's right or wrong in teaching this, because it's all just words. It's all words and meanings that we've all made up as humans and agreed to collectively communicate by, but they're not truth. The computer is not the computer. I'm not a human. I'm not Lisa. You're not Jasmine. You're not sitting there. All of that is concept, including real and unreal, including nothing and everything, consciousness, awareness, personal awareness, thoughts. Nothing is truth. The mind is, or not the mind, the identification is always trying to find a position. It's always trying to be something. It's always trying to find something real in the world of form, because then it believes it will be safe, but that's the biggest lie there is. There's no safety in form. The safety is in that I am and that empty looking. It's what's there before birth and what's there after death. There is no birth and death though, again they're concepts, but what we're terrified of is disappearing on the human level. But when you see your essence, that which was always experiencing never comes and goes and never leaves, then there can be tremendous relaxation in the body. Like you don't die, there's nobody to die. What disappears is your form, but then there's the attachment to the form. It's like, I can't bear it. I remember when my friend was dying, I first started making videos. I did a video on dying. Like I feel like I know what it is to die because I feel like I've died many times, and spiritually, and basically what it is it's like when you die, it's a letting go of everything that you know in form, but your essence, which is love, is still there. So you don't lose yourself, you just lose yourself in form. When there's still a lot of seeking energy, then the seeking energy doesn't want to let form go because it still wants to complete something in time. It still wants to get to something. I've got to do this for my mother, or I've got to say this, or I've got to be that. Roger always used to say, if you're not prepared to die now, and then you're seeking, you're living for the future. Like, and what it means to be prepared to now to die, it doesn't mean that you're not afraid if like a big lion comes in or if there's a big earthquake. Like that's fear, that's biological fear arising. But it's this deep knowing that there's nothing to get and that who you are is free, that you're going back into freedom. This deep knowing that you just lose all the fake stuff that you are. That you're protected, you can't go anywhere. You never went anywhere. It just feels like that. That's the illusion. Nice, Jasmine, thank you. Okay, I'm just going to go to the toilet. And then I will call Pauline. Sorry, I can never make it through talks. Even when I do live talks, I can only make about an hour and a half before I have to go to the toilet.
Hello.
Hey, Pauline.
Hello, Lisa.
Hey, thanks for calling.
Thank you. It's good to speak to you again.
Yeah, nice to speak with you again.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for streaming. It's like every week I'm like, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh,
It's
that's
so
sweet.
good.
Oh, nice.
So
It's a
good,
pleasure.
so good. And it's really lovely to be able to speak directly to you as well. And it's a bliss for me because I really miss speaking English.
Yeah.
And plus we are speaking about non-duality. So.
Yeah. Nice.
I don't really have a question. It's maybe more a sharing, and maybe you can comment. Like I want to share a difficulty.
Yeah, sure.
So I was wondering. I understood that there is no cause and effect relation. Do you say that in English?
Yeah.
About let's say like between, I mean, no relation between solving personal problems or emotional and like let's say body mind problem or personal structure problem and awakening or enlightenment. So because I had this, I shared it with you last time we spoke. I had an experience of awakening, I don't know, or an opening, I don't know what it is. Anyway, at this time, this thing I was in contact with, I realized that I was not the I, like the personal I was not controlling anything, and that I couldn't do anything to wake up. And it felt so, I wanted just to laugh because it was like, it's just a big joke. Like, I don't control anything. It will do it. Like it's, but that was 4 months ago. And now again, the seeking energy is back, and I can feel that every time there is like something unpleasing happening, like after, like I had a really intense osteopathic treatment 3 days ago with a friend, and because we are very comfortable one with the other, she told me immediately, okay, there is something with this person and this thing, and it went really personal, and it was really not comfortable for me, and I felt like I didn't want to deal with that. And so I'm seeing the mind trying to control and saying, okay, this I don't deal with it, and this I have to solve it, and once I will have solved everything, then I will deserve the enlightenment, something like this.
Yeah,
So
totally.
I'm triggered in this pattern, let's say.
Yeah. And that's so the root of separation is seeking. I don't really know what happens, but the root of it is an agitation. The right now is not okay. So no matter what is happening in your life, when there is identification, like really strong identification with the body, there has to be a certain amount of identification for there to be functioning. But when there is like identification, like more solid identification, I don't know how to define it differently in language, where it's containing seeking. So maybe there can be identification without seeking, but we'll forget about that part. So let's just speak about it like this. So there contains this seeking, and the seeking is an agitation. That this moment isn't enough, that this moment isn't okay. So no matter what happens in your life, there will always be a problem that is found when the seeking is there. And during the day, people's seeking is increasing and decreasing. When they become more expanded, there is less seeking. When they become more contracted, there's more seeking. And so what's happening in that moment with your friend is there is more of a contraction, and then all your thoughts come up about how to get rid of this or how to get to something else. And it's just allowing that to happen and seeing that that's happening, and that is enough. But that is all that needs to happen. In a way, that is what's happening. And it's just trusting, even though the person can't really trust it, but just from us speaking, knowing that the disidentification, the collapsing is happening. Life is in control of it and doing it. And that all of that is under control. What it's doing, it seems, or in the human level, is it's bringing this stuff into consciousness. So bringing up these illusions that you have. But that also doesn't need to be done in order for awakening to happen. It happens by itself, but that is seemingly what happens. Is that is seen. So these illusions are seen. So there was like a pulling away from your friend. Underneath there is maybe a thought like, maybe, I'm just giving an example, maybe there is a thought like, I'm not good enough, I've failed. And that would be more in the solar plexus area. So she points something out to you and you think, I'm not good enough, I've failed, I'm going to always be seeking. And that's the unconscious thoughts that are appearing. And then the seeking on top of that is to resolve it, is to get out of it, is to know what's happening, is to control it with the mind. And just noticing the illusion of that is not true. None of that dance is true. It's illusion happening.
Yes, that's where I'm triggered because I'm still identified. Even if I repeat myself, if I am because when she has really good hands, so I'm sure that what she touched, like it was with a very soft touch, but I felt like she was like going through my body at a special point where I feel tensions since a year, and I know that it's like this in this point, like is it contains, it's like it's containing a lot of memories, and at the same time I know that I'm none of all of this. But at the same time, I feel that I have to get in contact with it.
Yeah.
In order to, I don't know, to expand and to disappear maybe. But the mind is coming and grasping and making it a story and saying, okay, now I have to deal with it and I have to erase this.
Yeah. And it's just, and that's a lie. All of it's a lie. All of it's storytelling. That doesn't mean that you don't do it, because I think on the human level, that's wisdom to see the illusions of the body. But it's just seeing all of it isn't true. It might have some perspective on reality, but it's just seeing what your body mind is producing. And then when the seeking becomes strong, you get involved in that, and that becomes really real. It's just seeing that there is the feelings of not good enough. There is the feelings of feeling like you have to resolve it, that it's on you. You can even trace it back to childhood if you want, like see how you were taught that. And it's just allowing it to be there, which is what's happening. That is the disidentification that happens. The tipping point is seeing that none of it's true. Like, so the momentum is to seek, the momentum is to do something about it. And just noticing that, like noticing the visceral pain that can happen in your solar plexus when there is this want to control, and just seeing how that colors your reality, how that makes your body move in certain ways and makes you say certain things. And then also seeing that there's no doer inside of it, like different points in you get sparked and a different personality or different wants or needs come out. But it's not true. And then at some point there will just be the tipping off the edge. Like that will just, there will go, like you had the awakening before, there will be an awakening which really like changes things or doesn't go back into itself.
Yeah, because the experience that I had, it was not an explosion of the physical structure. I felt like a piece of fabric that has been English, it's so hard. It's like you pull, like let's say a t-shirt, and you pull really hard on the t-shirt and it gets bigger.
Yeah.
So I felt like this.
Yeah,
for
that's
like
really beautiful image. Yeah.
For a whole day, and I felt a little bit like dismantled or
Yeah.
more spacious, like I
It's,
was not really contained in anything, but yet
yeah.
I was not feeling one.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit, and a lot of dizziness as well with this.
Yeah, it does. It can give you really a lot of vertigo and a lot of like dizziness and lightheadedness, and like I used to feel like I was passing out. Like so, and
But now the
that's
t-shirt is back very small, I have to say.
yeah,
I continue with
yeah.
this
It tends to
image.
do that because the person is afraid, and also there is it's like shaken up the system, so it's bringing up these deeper ideas. But the beauty in that experience is that it's becoming more and more clear. So the structure is breaking down. The happiness is not found in what I do or don't do. Happiness, the freedom that I'm looking for, is about expansion or contraction. When I'm contracted, I'm deeply suffering. When I'm more expanded, I'm more happy. So then you begin to unhook the ideas that I need my lover to be a certain way. I need the world to be a certain way in order for me to be happy. You can have those needs and wants on a human level, awakening or no awakening, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying that you don't have that, but it's this energy that says, if my husband isn't a certain way, then he creates suffering in me. If I if I get him to behave in a certain way, then I will be permanently happy, or I will be happy. So it's that illusion that's seen to not be true. Your happiness comes from expansion, the unhappiness, the suffering comes from contraction. So freedom is being one with life, with yourself, not being in illusion that happiness comes from time. But that's not implying that you let people treat you like poop and then and that's I'm not quite trying to say that that's what it can sound like. What I'm trying to point to,
and this is really tricky.
Yeah, it is complex. What I'm trying to point to is that there's a freedom inherently in us, and then as you become more in tune with the body, then you begin to learn, navigate how to deal with people from a more expanded place where you have your wants. This is where there has to be some form of identification with the body. So you you don't just become totally in the everythingness, because if you are, then there's no wants or there's no needs. There's identification, but it's identified, but it doesn't believe that freedom comes from time. Freedom comes from this. But then you will be able to feel this gentle movement in the body, and your body will begin to retrain itself. Like I'm still, and I see it as an endless process, retraining myself in interactions with humans. I'm certainly not perfect, and I have habits and old conditions coming up, but that's another part of it.
But in the end, there is no perfection.
No.
Oh, I'm asking myself, what is perfection?
No, on the human level, there's no perfection, but on the non-identified level, the love level, the absolute everything, it's absolute perfection, and it has no requirements of this life. And that's who you truly are. That's your essence. That's what's looking out. But it's having the experience of a human currently.
But even if you say that you still have some identification, can I say that you carry the absolute in each and every part of yourselves? So you have this.
Yeah, there's a deep knowing of that. Like there's no sense, I don't think, here that freedom comes from time. But there's no, there's freedom's here. Freedom is what I am. And then the body has the movements towards what it wants or what it doesn't want, and is trying to find the best way in which to navigate that with humans in a peaceful and kind way. That's complex. Humans are complex.
Yes.
Including myself. Like I don't mean to take myself out of that, because you've got two bodies that have wants, and then it's like, okay, now they have to navigate these wants together, which is really beautiful. But as soon as you it's kind of like set up for drama. Like we live together, or you have friends, and then you both have a different idea. We sometimes like the idea that when we become enlightened, we have no wants, and especially if we've had more narcissistic parents, and then we think we become really flexible, and other people can get what they want, and then there'll be no conflict. Like I used to have that perspective that I would have no wants, and then there was a part of me in a way that wanted that so that I could be really passive with other humans and never experience conflict again. But that's not the right way
Thank you
either.
for saying it, because I have this projection, even if I know it's projection and it's not true. I can't help the mind making up stories, and it is making this exact story, like I will be like this and this will be perfect, and it actually affect my behavior, and most of the time I let other people cross my boundaries just because I'm trying to match this
and it's also a habit. You mostly have it from childhood, like a tendency towards, like if you become without any wants, then the others will be happy. And that's not it.
And everybody will love me.
Yeah.
Blah, blah.
Then what happens if you do that? Then everybody else's wants gets acted out. So it's almost like you just take on a different ego.
It's exactly this. And it's like a never-ending thing.
Yeah. So it's not that either.
Nice. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for putting yourself out there and being willing to speak in front of everybody.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I have no I don't know if I have no limits or no boundaries for that. Like I can speak about my inner movements really with people I don't know I meet in the street, and I'm very comfortable with that. It's just a game, let's say, and especially with you on this streaming. I mean, I feel that at least I'm here for that.
Yeah.
And so thank you again.
Thank you. Yeah, lots of love to you.
And I wanted also to thank you about sharing a lot about Khaleesi, because I live with a dog. That's my main, let's say, living interaction. I interact more with my dog than with other human beings.
Yeah.
And so I'm always wondering and observing her, and it's so good to hear you relating to Khaleesi. And then I'm looking at Kaya, and I'm like, okay, maybe I can understand you more.
Yeah, I love it living with animals. I'd love to live with more animals, but Khaleesi would eat them.
Yeah, I understand.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much,
Thanks.
Lisa. Thank
Lots
you.
of love.
Love you. Bye-bye.
Love you. Bye. Oh, sweet. Okay, that's enough for today. So if you've written a question and I haven't answered it, then you can write it again next Sunday and I'll answer it then. But in the meantime, have a beautiful week, and I wish you everything and a little bit more. Everything and a little bit more. How's that? Goodbye.